Hello YouTube! Alex here with another Freebird Media live stream. Now I realized recently I said I wasn't going to be doing any more of these live streams, however I changed my mind and I felt that I still wanted to do these on occasion. And today I was actually planning to do one to clarify some stuff regarding a recent Twitter conversation I was in and some of my other positions on things. And by synchronicity, as I was working on preparing my live stream, I was going to talk about a few different subjects. One of them I was going to talk about was, how there's a lot of people on both the far left and the far right that have, no empathy and a lot of the same shameful behavior. And I was going to bring up some things involving this ARC blog that calls itself an anti-racist blog, but really it's a hate blog. And the way it operates is by taking anyone who's politically active in any sort of even mildly conservative way and associating them with actual racists or whatever, and then smearing them, trying to ruin their lives, get them fired, that sort of thing. It's a very horrible kind of thing, and the person who runs it is quite nasty. And now this story is breaking and going around that the guy who's running it appears to have been identified. And so, Twitter's going crazy. People are talking about this, and I'm someone who has personally been targeted and by this guy, and this blog has tried to smear me many times. It's very, very scummy behavior. And there's something about these people that are anonymous that operate like that just creep me out. I watched this documentary recently, Don't Fuck with Cats, on Netflix. And there's something about, people that get off on being anonymous on the internet and fucking with people that, in an actual malicious way, that just creeps me out. And this guy is similar to that in that he's been running this blog and trying to ruin people's lives. And he brags a lot about being anonymous and how he can screw with people. Well, I'm just going to report the story as what we know so far and why people are saying what they're saying. But if you look at this blog post here, I've been talking with several people on the phone this afternoon because I'm in contact with an extended network of people, basically that operate to keep track of Antifa, stuff like that. I have a thing on my channel where I personally don't dox anyone. So if you look over my content for the last 3 years, I'm not about doxing because I'm not trying to ruin lives or anything, but I'm reporting on this story. So I was talking to some people, and it's a very, very interesting story. So you should look at this link here. It's to a post here on a Kiwi Farms website. And if you go to this website, you'll see that there's a lawsuit that is being served, and you can click on this and see the affidavit here. And it appears that this lawsuit is naming the guy running the ARC blog. And when you look into this guy, first of all, this case is going to go to court in late March, and there'll be more evidence presented at court with the exhibits to corroborate the claim being put forth in this lawsuit. So what I'm reporting as a journalist is just that this lawsuit is going forward. This is the accusation made, and these are the people making it. So that's and we'll talk more about how it corresponds with things. So that's I just want to report facts and clarify that. But this is what the story is and what we know. So you look at this blog post here and you'll come up with this affidavit, and I believe it's if you go to section 319. Let me find it here. Section 319 of this affidavit says, in 2011, I first became connected with the Anti-Racist Canada ARC website, operated at, and there's a link to it, by leaving a comment under a blog post. Soon I started correspondence with the owner and operator of the website and Twitter account. So if you can see his name here, and if you open up this document, you can see who she's alleging is the runner of it, and then you can look into this guy. Who he says he operated under the anonymity of the ARC moniker. As soon as he saw my name, such person recognized me from my Heritage Front days in an email dated June 19th, 2011. So the person making this affidavit too is someone who has credibility because it's a woman who's been involved in sort of social justice activism for a very long time and has a very good reputation. And so that's why this is such a big deal, because this is being brought forward by someone who appears to be very credible. She has a lot of there's a lot of information in this affidavit. It's worth reading over for sure. It's very interesting. This is her claim, and she's saying this is the guy. So I've talked to the ARC guy through his anonymity many times, and we're matching up this identity here with how he described himself. It seems to fit. He described himself as a 43-year-old white male from Saskatchewan, That's who this appears to be. It seems to match up the pictures. There's a video from the Fifth Estate on CBC that came up that appears to feature him. There's a lot of pictures here and stuff. So this is pretty big deal. This guy does seem to be a very malicious kind of sociopathic guy. He's for many years he's been attacking a lot of people who don't deserve it. This seems to be what we think it is. So this guy, we'll find out more when this goes to court in late March. But I do recommend looking into this affidavit and keep up to date. This is, like I said, if this is who it appears to be. This is someone who's been attacking me and treating me maliciously for years. I'm a pretty good person. I don't think I deserve any of the crap that they've associated me with. So it'll be very, very interesting to see if this turns out to be him and this this anonymous person who uses the internet to ruin lives like this. So it seems like very interesting. So I'll read a little bit more. Sorry, just let me check the chat for a second quickly also. I'm not sure if there's any comments. Bill Berry says, "Hey Al, hey Bill, great to see you. Thanks for joining." So if you check out the this KiwiThreadsFarm.net thing, this affidavit is pretty interesting. You can look into the guy on LinkedIn as well, and if it turns out that he does work for the Catholic School Board, then I think that the school board should be made aware of that. Seems relevant. Patrick's in the chat. Great to see you, man. He says this guy has had people lose custody of their kids due to his doxing. If that, I'm not sure specifically what you're referring to, but if that's true, and it probably is, then that's another example of how low this guy gets. I clearly don't like him because he is unfair to me and he's basically attacks me anonymously, and I find that very cowardly. However, this goes far beyond my personal opinion. I mean, he's just a very disliked guy because he's been doing this for a long time, and it's really, I recommend everyone read this affidavit because other names are mentioned too, and to see how all these people are related or allegedly is very, very interesting. And there's a lot more to this going on here, but so basically I'll just say, so this person in the affidavit is alleging that a guy named Kurt Phillips is the guy running the ARC blog, and she says at 3:20 in the affidavit, she says, "In my 4 years of friendship with Kurt Phillips as a part of the ARC collective, I supplied information such as names and photos of Heritage Front members, took photos and wrote several blog pieces that were posted on the ARC blog. I supported the website and Kurt's sleuthing activities by providing opinions and verbal written support whenever necessary. We advised and confided in each other on numerous occasions, both via email, telephone, and in person, and had conversations that reached far beyond the topic of racism and white supremacy. Kurt also sent me gifts and care packages on multiple occasions. I sent him one package in return, and he contributed financially to my book funding efforts. My first post on Anti-Racist Canada appeared on November 2011. At the time, Kurt wrote in an email dated November 21st, 2011, that my material would be left permanently on the website. We also provided the link to your blog entry on Bristow, as well as your coming out post. The information to purchase your book is found at the top, and we are 322. Over the following months, Kurt and I became close friends. We started chatting over the phone, and at one point in 2013, he visited me in Toronto. Kurt became my best friend and someone I confided in frequently, including sharing my doubts and concerns about Elizabeth Moore's appropriation of my lived experiences. As an expert in the field of anti-racism in Canada and someone regularly relied on by reporters who cover stories about neo-fascism in Canada, such as Evan Balgord, Kurt was intimately familiar with one of the central characters involved in the Heritage Front and was aware of the limited role, if any, that Elizabeth had played in the group. I'd just like to pause for a minute. So anyone who's been following me for the last 3 years or more knows that I'm an independent journalist. I'm based here in Toronto, and I've done a lot of work covering Antifa violence, violence with the far right and the far left in general, actually on both sides. And I had worked on a book which I decided at the last minute not to publish. A big theme of that book is something that I've done a lot of research, obviously, that I guess is still a theme of my channel, which is the way that out in society, especially in Canada, there's legitimate racism that exists towards some people in certain areas and in different ways. And you can talk about all the different contexts and nuances and ways in which, ethnocentrism and actual racism and hatred and stuff kind of manifest out there. And then separate from that, there's also this huge industry of manufactured, I call it like a racism like a racism profit industry, where hucksters basically make an industry out of forcing racial tensions and making people look racist so they can denounce them, and then like making a game out of PR involved in racism, things like that. One example that comes to my mind, for example, is I was a supporter of the PPC in the last election, and I did vote for them, and I found I'd covered all that what I considered to be anti-white rhetoric and propaganda promoted by certain think tanks and in the media, and one came to be exposed as the Daisy Group, which is run by Warren Kinsella, did turn out to be involved in that. So I don't want to connect two things necessarily, but I do want to point out that a theme I cover on this channel is the way that racial tensions are exacerbated and manipulated, and people profit from them. And so the ARC blog, I think, plays a role in all of that. And then it's really interesting to note like the way that even this person in this thing is talking about, how different people appropriate causes and backgrounds and manipulate, this whole racism narrative, which the mainstream narrative, the mainstream media then reinforces. And so something else I'd like to personally point out to anyone watching this, I think this is a huge thing to say. I'm just pointing out what we know, which is that this witness, this person who's alleging all this is in this affidavit is identifying this guy. It seems to fit everything that he's self-identified with, and seems to be a credible witness. We'll find out more when court happens on March 20th. It's important that the people out there who are really concerned about this, and anyone watching this, do not harass this man. Do not go and put anything on, any hateful things on the Twitter, anything that if it's confirmed to be as it appears to be him, you don't want anything the media can then twist around, or not another Sufis incident. So that anyone out there, keep your hate to yourselves. Don't harass anyone. Be responsible. Like I said, this appears to be the guy, but I'm only reporting this information that is now being widely circulated and saying this is why. But if something ever came out that this whole thing was some giant other mix-up, you got to make sure no one does anything preemptively. So keep focus on the issues. Don't premature rush to anything. Don't harass anyone or anything like that. But it is worth noting that this is going on right now. This is all information in the public domain. This is why people seem to be concerned. It is a relevant issue since this ARC blog, has been tormenting people for a long time. So then people should follow this story with curiosity, and it's very important. So, and this is I've personally felt victimized by this kind of psychopath, and I wouldn't express that usually in like a poor me kind of way, but in this case, I'm saying like as someone who knows what it's like to be at the receiving end of some anonymous weapon that people are just firing like smear and slander at. Then of course, I'd like to see this confirmed so we know who we're dealing with. Another thing, I was talking about how before this came up this afternoon, through synchronicity, I was preparing for another stream where I was going to be talking about Antifa and ARC and clarifying my positions on the far right or the far left, because at this point, Freebird, I am going to continue running Freebird Media. Actually, I'm going to run it as a general media platform, Canadian media platform. So politics is going to be a subsection of that. The same way, the Toronto Star will cover sports, entertainment, politics, whatever. I'll have a place on Freebird Media where I do what I consider to be important, higher quality, good journalism involving political stuff, and then I'm going to do my other non-political stuff that I enjoy as well. And so it's just a bigger media brand in general, Canadian themed. But with the political stuff, I want people to know I'm not a right-wing person, I'm not a left-wing person. I'm repping my own brand of intellectual approach to things. So Freebird Media is not a right or left thing. It's a think for yourself, develop yourself kind of individualist mindset that, I acknowledge all kinds of realities about the identity politics around me, and I talked in a very blunt way about them. But at the end of the day, it's just about making, holding yourself to a higher standard. That's where I separate myself from the trash right, even though we agree on certain things, and I agree with the left. But I just don't agree with the fringes on the right or the left, because I don't respect them, and I think they act in a really shitty way. And one of those things is people that attack people through anonymity. I think, as a person, if I'd have published my book, I was going, in the beginning on the front page, I had a quote from the Paul Anka song, My Way. I think about this all the time. My Way by Frank Sinatra. Before I found out he didn't write, I thought it was Frank Sinatra when I was younger. But ever since high school, My Way was my favorite song, right? And the last part of that goes, for what is a man, what has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way. I always took that very seriously. So everything I do is like I don't bullshit. Like Freebird Media, I represented it, Alex Van Ham. All these people that want to try to smash me, it's always through anonymity, and there's something just cowardly about that to a degree. Now I understand sometimes people are in jobs or positions in life where something's at jeopardy and it's not worth risking it. So I understand the anonymity, but in this case, this is just a coward, I think, who wants to target people. The person running the ARC block. So that's why I would like to recommend to people that follow me or give a shit what I think, that I advocate like being a honorable person and being brave enough to say what you think most of the time. And this, I just don't respect anonymous cowards. So just felt like mentioning that. Just let me check the chat one more second and then go back to the affidavit. Great. Okay, there's some people in the chat. Great to see you guys. Facts versus feelings. Great to see you, man. This is huge. Happy day. If this is confirmed as it appears to be, I'm just reporting again the details exactly why it appears to be what it is. So these are the names being named or whatever. But again, we have to wait to see more of the exhibits in court in late March. But this seems to be getting a lot of attention because it seems pretty interesting. So Luke VNO says many tactical nukes find him at home. No, guys, I'm not advocating for any kind of street violence or going to harass anyone. Or personally, I'm not saying any of that. I am advocating let the courts play this out, but people should watch what happens. So I'm not advocating any kind of violence in any way at all. And we, again, everyone be hesitant and have caution. Watch, make sure that everything as it appears is 100% as it appears. So. Don't write anything ignorant. Don't harass this guy. Don't do anything. Just let the courts play out as they will. Just cringe. Diversity channels. Good afternoon. Good to see you guys. Good to see everyone. Bill Berry says, "Hey, just cringe." Good to see you guys. Gun Cotton. Great to see you, man. Great to see everyone in the chat. So sorry. A few more comments. Stan says diversity is a huge business. Looking forward to seeing you expand. Someone says, looking forward to seeing you expand. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate all the support. I'll do another stream probably where I talk a little bit about Antifa and some of my thoughts, especially regarding a really flamey Twitter thread that happened last week. So just so people that are freaking out can calm down a bit, and I'll clarify about some of the stuff. But I don't want to get too off topic. So in this stream, I just I want to just reiterate that it seems because of this lawsuit that's being brought forward. And this extended network of research and people, and they're showing all this evidence. It seems pretty clear that this guy, just like we thought, this 43-year-old guy from Saskatchewan here, who's been identified in this affidavit, is the guy running the ARC blog, and the ARC blog is a very psychopathic, hate blog that smears people. The game they play is they take normal people that are politically active in any kind of anything that's not left-wing politics, and then they associate them with other slimy racists, and they. And that's how they use kind of like engage in a PR tactic of smearing people, and it's just slimy. So that's why we all need to watch this to make sure we see who this is, and it plays into the left-wingy mainstream propaganda machine. I don't want to get all conspiracy theories, but what I'm saying is in mainstream media in Canada, there is a left-wing kind of progressive bias to the way that the media corporations act in the markets, and they're able to reinforce things by, like for example, the Sufi's incident. I don't think that the owners of Sufi's restaurant actually deserved any kind of harassment or anything for the behavior of what their son did at the PPC rally. So I don't want to see the media be able to turn around and use hateful behavior from anyone who opposes Antifa as a way to defend Antifa. We should be smart and let the courts and the evidence kind of track these people down. I will say ARC functions as an Antifa blog, and they proclaim Antifa on their banner on the front and stuff like that. So I think that's all fair to say. Agent 47, oh, look who we have here, Mr. Uni Educated. Why are you mentioning anti-hate? You are Antifa. Wow, okay. So Agent 47 is kind of an example of what I'm talking about these anonymous idiots online that you don't know who you're talking about, dude. And I'll keep you in this chat long enough to use you as a teaching tool, I guess, if you want to say something stupid. Otherwise, say what you want to say. I kind of make my point here. He's saying Mr. University Educated because I brought this up in a Twitter stream the other day, which is something I wanted to talk about in general. Being educated is I have like a diversity of experiences, right? So when I got out of the ivory tower, I didn't, it's hard to get a job in that kind of field. So I ended up doing I was raised in a farm. I grew up on tobacco farms, tree farms, blue collar family. So I just really value that blue-collar perspective in the trades, and after university I worked in landscaping, and I myself am like a really blue-collar, like lower-class working guy, so that's where my view comes from. But I've also, I did spend 8 years getting 2 degrees and a diploma. I have worked for different groups that represent small business interests and stuff like that. I have a very widely developed background, so sometimes when I'm arguing with somebody on Twitter and they haven't done any work at all or any research and they just want to argue about a book they haven't read, for example, and clearly haven't read, I do get frustrated, and I do tell people to shut up and go read and do something, because at a certain you have to do a certain amount of your own work just to come to the table in any discussion and educate yourself. And it is absolutely um, a perfect example of just the less you know, the more you think you know everything, right? That's how a lot of people on the right are, and it and the left. But lately, I'm seeing it more on the right, and it just like I can't handle it. It just drives me bonkers. Whether you want to talk about Saul Alinsky or immigration in Canada, if you're going to talk, especially if you're right, you want to take a right-wing perspective on narratives about mass immigration, you better have read Canada in Decay. You better have done some research. You better know what you're talking about, especially if you're talking to me, a guy on record as a journalist, having interviewed Ricardo many times, and being connected with some of his work earlier on, and having read these books, promoted them through my sites. I bring up the education because it represents labor. Like, it represents an amount of time that I had to put in reading a lot of stuff so that I could comment on them. So yes, when people start to argue with me about books they clearly haven't read, but they want to demand this or that, like Saul Alinsky is a communist, this or that, it frustrates me. It annoys the hell out of me, actually. It's like conservative people often want to talk about the merits of hard work, but they don't, whenever it comes to anything intellectual, it goes right out the window. And it's like, I know as much as everyone else because I'm loud and I bang my fist on the table, and that, my opinion deserves to be taken seriously. Not everyone's opinion is equal. They get all, basically, like, I've noticed that people on the right, they get communist when they start thinking, when anything not in an actual like labor trade, intellectual, it's everyone's equal, no matter how hard you work or whatever. Every loudmouth retard deserves the same place in a conversation, and I just get super annoyed with that. So sorry, that's why I went off into town there. Agent 47 says, "This is a weak argument. If you had solid points, you wouldn't need to mention uni." Well, you have to provide the context of how I said it, right? So my argument is not I'm a university educated, therefore I'm right and you're wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm elaborating on the reason why I bring it up in certain conversations when I tell people to go, get educated, because people are out there sharing incorrect memes about all kinds of stuff on the right. It just makes it turns a lot of people on the right, like their legitimate points about things, into a joke, because you're out there like fumbling the ball in some arrogant way. Gun Guns says, "A wise man knows when to listen." Exactly. Like, just sometimes people on the right, especially, like, the vast majority of my work really has been criticizing the left and documenting violence on the left and stuff like that. And also, well, that's not true, because I've way more interviews trying to show and document who people on the right are. But basically, lately, I've already I've already said what I have to say about a lot of the left, but to the right, I'm like, people need to just stop talking and think more and read more and spend more time researching before they just run out there and think they understand everything. And Agent 7 says, "You are a communist." So at which point I would say you're a troll, because it doesn't make any sense. And so I guess it's just you're wasting my stream, at which point, so I might have to yeah, I'm gonna put you in a timeout. I'm going to put him in a timeout. If he says anything stupid again, I'll just ban him. So anyway, I'll go back to this affidavit, though, because the affidavit is worth paying attention to. Sorry. Where was I here? Section 322. "Over the following months, Kurt and I became close friends. We started chatting over the phone." Oh, sorry, I read that point. 323. "Kurt knew about my friendship with Elizabeth, and as a Facebook friend of mine, he witnessed my social interactions with her. At one point, I tried to contact them, but Elizabeth was not interested in having anything to do with Anti-Racist Canada, and did not want to share whatever personal mention she still had of her time inside the Heritage Front. Right after my meeting with Elizabeth at the Madison pub, where she shared details of her affair with Len Rudner, and right after I watched White Lies on YouTube, I reached out to Kurt and told him of my concerns that Elizabeth may have used her intimate relationships within the CJC to advance her career, including brokering a CBC film that clearly represented a majority of my lived experiences and not hers." So I recommend that this is a pretty long affidavit, you I'll read into it, but continues to go on from here about some really interesting claims. 326. "As soon as the Canadian Anti-Hate Collective was created, Kurt openly described himself as a member of their advisory board in a blog entry dated May 5th, 2018, titled 'Canadian Anti-Hate Network is now active.' The mutual publicity between both ARC and the CAN was solidified when both Bernie Farber and Evan Balgord repeatedly requested that their own social media followers visit Anti-Racist Canada, Kurt Phillips' website, or Patreon page to make donations. In turn, Anti-Racist Canada solicited their own followers base to make donations to the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. Also, in the months that followed the inception of the Anti-Hate Network, and with full knowledge of my concerns and evidence regarding Elizabeth's appropriations, Kurt began to like, retweet, and endorse Elizabeth May's tweets via the @ARC Collective Twitter account. 327. Concerned about the appropriation of my story, especially on a platform I had worked for and contributed to for 4 years, I wrote several emails addressed to Kurt and left comments on the ARC site, begging him to look at my information about Moore's appropriation, a fact he was already aware of. I received no response and proceeded to tweet to ARC Collective using Kurt's real name. On September 12, 2018, I was notified by a common friend, Daryl Lamont Jenkins, that lawyer Richard Warman had been asked by Kurt to request via Daryl that I take down the tweet I made in which I called out to Kurt Phillips. I deleted the initial tweet, but after feeling distressed that my concerns had still not been addressed, namely Elizabeth Moore's misrepresentation of my lived experiences and Kurt's endorsement of her tweets on the ARC Twitter platform, I tweeted to Kurt again, and I wrote him one last email in which I stated that I would expose their collusion if ARC's endorsements of Moore did not stop. Okay, so anyone for just tuning in right now, what I'm reading from is an affidavit that's been submitted for a court case that's coming up in late March, in which a person with a good reputation for social activism and involved in a lot of this stuff with a lot of these characters involved in anti-racism, in this affidavit brought forward, she claims and is providing all this evidence that a guy by the name of Kurt is the guy running the Anti-Racist Canada blog. So I'm reading through the affidavit and seeing where her what she's saying. I'm also advocating, nobody run out and do anything aggressive or violent or harass anybody until things are played out more in the courts and more things are, dealt with in the courts. I'm just reporting on the story that's blowing up everywhere right now and why it seems the way it does. So, by the way, if anyone values the work that I do with Freebird, please share this stream out or help me get some views on it, because the most of these streams aren't monetized or anything, and I would like to get, if the brand should continue, if it's worth doing, then I would try to get the word out as much as possible. So feel free to tweet or share this stream. In the description to this, there's a link to this affidavit and actually to a website that has a bunch of stuff on it, including this affidavit. It's all worth looking at. 328. Instead of responding, addressing my concerns, or even explaining why he was abruptly deleting all of my articles without me having the possibility of backing them up, Kurt proceeded to scrub my contributions from the Anti-Racist Canada website while continuing to endorse Canadian Anti-Hate Network members on both the ARC blog and the @ARC Collective Twitter account. Kurt erased every single article I wrote for Anti-Racist Canada between 2011 and 2015 and removed every blog post he had written in support of me and my book campaigns. I believe the only thing that remains on the website are several uncredited photos I took during Kurt's trip to Toronto, including of Zundel's former Carlton Street home, Wolfgang Droge's old apartment, and street photos of Heritage Front and anti-racist action hangouts such as Sneaky D's restaurant. Although I was able to recover some of my posts via the Wayback Machine, at least 2 articles were not crawled and indexed by Google. As a result, they are lost forever. 329. Not only did Kurt erase every article I wrote for Anti-Racist Canada, but he removed a link to my book that he expressly assured and promised me in his email dated November 21, 2011, would remain permanently on the Anti-Racist Canada site. This overt scrubbing and erasure of all my contributions to Anti-Racist Canada, made over a span of 4 years, shows what I believe is clear evidence of collusion between ARC and Canadian Anti-Hate Network members that to suppress and erase my contributions to anti-racism activism in Canada and to shutting down the Heritage Front. So it is a very interesting affidavit. A lot of interesting things coming to light, it seems. Sorry guys, lots of action here. Let me catch up. Patrick says, what happened to Agent 47? I bounced him. I put him in timeout after his last comment calling me a communist, because there's no reason, that makes no sense, so it's just a troll comment, waste my time. Moose lumps are very messy. Oh yeah, Defend Canada Media says, ha ha ha, this is awesome, the Fifth Estate show, F them hard, it's on now. There's a Fifth Estate thing that's out there. Here's what I'd also recommend, guys. So I'm recommending that we don't have another Sufis incident where people run out and say harassment or threats or anything that can be used to turn this around, but let this play out. But it is important that if it turns out that someone who works with kids as a member of the Catholic School Board is running this hate blog, that needs to be brought to light because of all the documented actual violence and hate that this Antifa group arbitrarily commit. Now, on my site, I have a lot of videos of that, and there are a lot of other good channels, Facts versus Feelings, and a bunch of other people. A lot of good channels out there that have other Antifa footage. So we need to stress what Antifa really is, because technically they are terrorism. They're street terror. They're people that arbitrarily wear masks and engage in street violence for the purposes of intimidating their political opponents. So it's by definition they are a terrorist group. We need to stress that. Make sure that the media might try to defend this, but I like that the Fifth Estate is. And so it appears that this guy, this 43-year-old guy from Saskatchewan, it appears that he's in the Fifth Estate thing, and he's being named in this affidavit. So it looks like the left is having a little bit of an implosion here, and I know a lot of people have been targeted and harassed by the ARC blog. So really hoping that this all gets sorted out in the courts, and then the public knows if it's true, like this is exactly the guy who's been acting like a psychopath towards, I would argue personally, and I'm very serious about this, and I think that I've walked the walk and lived the life where I can tell you that, like, if you value democracy or freedom as a goal, like, I've engaged in the system to tell you, like, this kind of thing, it absolutely destroys democracy, because what this is, and other group, like think tanks, like the Daisy Group, in my opinion, these are the true enemies of a free and open society. Not Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky is just giving you a playbook on how to work within an open society for those people that actually value a free and open society and don't just pay mouth tribute to it. If you're in a free and open society, the idea of a democracy is that everyone gets to be informed correctly of things. So, and then you make a decision on that. And Saul Alinsky never advocated anything illegal or lying or anything. But what I say, these think tanks and these smear groups that go out and they weaponize things, they shut down actual discourse. And small amounts of people with media power can really smear and destroy things and shut down people's ability to be politically active or to engage in politics, and that's the real scumminess of it. These anonymous blogs like this that want to go out and play the game of associating good people with other people and smearing everyone and lying and stuff. So, I really do hope that justice comes to light in this case. Let me see what else is going on here. Gotta catch up here. Howard G, good to see you in the chat, man. Democracy is a poor political system for fighting global warming. Communist China is the best model. Christina Fears, United National Climate Chief. I'm not sure the relevance of that. I really hope that this story gets a lot of attention, though. So, I hope people definitely pay attention to this. Agent 47 says there's a reason why you only have 19 views, and I would say there's probably a reason why you are anonymous, good sir. So you will now be hid from this channel. I don't mind criticism and nothing like that. I just don't have time for baseless criticism. Like, don't say stupid shit or I'll just bounce you. That's my new attitude. Defend Candace keeps... By the way, the algorithm of YouTube blocks certain comments. I don't do that. It just happens automatically. So if you type something and then you don't see it in there, I don't have time to go through and do that. I just bounce Agent 47, but I mean in general, because there's a whole bunch here and I'd have to go through and too many. But I see that Defend Can keeps bringing up the special on the Fifth Estate. Let me just get a link to that and share that in the description, because I didn't actually get a chance to watch the whole thing. I have to leave for work in not too long, and I wanted to just share. Let me see if I can find a link to that. That Fifth Estate thing is good. I had it here. Just give me one sec, guys. Or if anybody else has the Fifth Estate thing, throw a link in the chat, please. That would be awesome. Oh, and there's another link here. I'm just going to share this one. This is by the Post Millennial. different thing but related. Notorious Antifa doxing activist accused of racism and predatory behavior. This is about Anti-Fash Gordon. It just shows another anonymous horrible person getting what they deserve. So there, check that out. Fanny Anzai joined, says, let me just catch up to date. So there is a person who's well known, involved in social justice activism and anti-racism activism, all this stuff, is submitted an affidavit for a court case that's coming up in, I think it's March 20th, but it might be March 24th. I got to clarify that. And with a really interesting thing here, there's a link in the description to a website, and you can look over this evidence and as affidavit submitted. The affidavit, she talks about a long-term friendship with this guy, and it claims a certain person named Kurt is the guy running the ARC website. And it seems to coordinate exactly with what we know about him. It's a guy from Saskatchewan, 43-year-old white guy, matches the pictures. The Fifth Estate came out with this big thing that coincides with everything. So it seems that it's been pretty much established, and there'll be a lot more evidence that's involved in the exhibits in court. It seemed, but I'm saying everyone have caution, just be tight here, and we'll see how this all plays out in court. But it seems to be that this they've identified the guy running the ARC website, which is basically a hate blog that engages in PR to smear politically active people by associating them with like neo-Nazis and stuff like that. So it's a very malicious, anonymous kind of cowardly blog, and it's an Antifa blog. So essentially. Van Candace says, I tried to share, but it'll let me. That's awfully weird. I don't know why. Howard G says, you should get into politics, Alex. I appreciate that, but it's not. I'm not a politician. It's not in my blood. I'm just way too honest to be a politician. Okay, but I think I found the Fifth Estate thing here. Let me share it. Also, about being a politician is just that I don't have any desire to be leading people. I like just talking my own opinions and stuff. I don't really want to be telling other people how to live. But here, let me share. Let me share this with you guys. This is a Fifth Estate documentary, definitely worth checking out. Yeah, so definitely check that out. Check out the website I linked to, the KiwiFarms.net article. Read the affidavit that it links to, and check out this Fifth Estate documentary. And then I would also check, for those who want to know everything, understand everything. Also look at my website. Sorry, this channel is really cleaned up, so there's only I think like 30 videos or whatever. Go on there, check out some of the Antifa violence if you haven't seen that already. And then I think we should watch this unfold, because if what everything like it appears to be confirmed, but let's wait till it's 100,000% confirmed, then we know that like who's who and who's been targeting everybody, and then you can ask them directly, now that you're outed for being like a horrible person, what why have you done this, and can let people basically ask them questions directly. Fanny Anzai says, I interview people on my YouTube channel. I would like to talk to you about Canadian politics. Absolutely, sure. Shoot me a email at freebirdmediacanada@gmail.com. I've seen your YouTube channel before. I'd be happy to talk with you. Jimmy Jihad says he was literally mocking people not being able to ID him last night. Just desserts for him. Yeah, he does that too. The guy running the ARC blog the person running the ARC blog has been targeting a lot of innocent people for years, and also bragging about how he's, they can't find him, and it just, that's why I brought up, it reminds me of that Don't Fuck With Cats documentary where that guy just got off on like the internet's attention from being able to hurt something anonymously. Guy's sick. Then he says, I usually save your videos on my folders and share on my Facebook page. Wow, I super appreciate that. Thank you very much. Kimmy Alberta says, hey, Derek Rance says thinks you are an Antifa. What do you say to that? Hey, Derek Rance. Yeah, Derek Rance is a funny guy. I don't even know where to start with that. Thinking that I'm Antifa is pretty hilarious. He's basing that on the idea that this thing that came up today is about the anti-race candidate. I tagged them in a blog post that in a Twitter thread that I was having started off with Lee Stewart. This is a journalist that shared one of these incorrect paranoid memes about Saul Alinsky and a socialist state and all that. And it just kind of annoys me because Saul Alinsky, of course, is on my official reading list. I think Rules for Radicals is a really interesting book. A lot of people hate on that and they haven't read it, and it just becomes a theme that annoys me, and people don't know what they're talking about. They haven't read things. They don't understand Saul Alinsky. So anyway, I called out Lee for having this incorrect meme, and then this conversation kept going from there because I am also, like, as my brand with Freebird Media, I'm establishing myself as a completely different thing from leftist politics or right politics. I'm not on the right. This is not a right-wing blog. This is its own thing, Canadian-themed media, and I don't believe in that don't punch right crap or being tribal where this is just a black and white us versus them thing. Like, not at all. I'll criticize bullshit wherever I see it on the left or the right. And I actually I didn't expect art to get identified like this. It was funny, but I like bringing in the I wanted to bring in the far right in that Twitter feed, so I tagged him, and then I wanted to show. Well, actually, like I said at the beginning of this stream, it's kind of a synchronicity that all this happened because I was preparing for another stream today right before this all broke, and then I switched over this topic. But basically, I have a list here. I'll do another stream and I'll get into this. But comparing all the bullshit and like the scumminess of the left and the right, and trying to show how they're kind of mirror images of each other. That's why I brought ARC into the conversation. But I would also say to people, like anyone that would say, like, for Derek Rance to call me Antifa or anything like that is really stupid. Like, it's low IQ, lowbrow shit. And anyone in this chat that would say that is stupid. I mean, I'm running this chat publicly. I don't care for anonymous people on the internet. I mean, you're all, no offense, I'm not meaning to insult everyone on here that's anonymous, but most of you are anonymous. You're, like, I'm the man out here that's saying saying what I think with my face. So all these anonymous haters out there, like, I don't like. So one of my buddies who I do care about his opinion very much was saying, you lost respect with all these certain people, and I was like, I don't respect them. I don't care what they think. I don't like the trash right. I want to distance myself from the trash right. So I can only engage with so much stupidity before I just have to tap out, right? Like Derek Rance trying to allege that I'm Antifa or something like that, or a communist. Like, I can't roll my eyes any harder, or I would just get lightheaded. So what else? Say something else, and I'll keep responding. But that's basically my thoughts on that. Kimmy says, yeah, I didn't appreciate him saying that about you. Thank you, I appreciate that a lot. Defend Canada Media says, what I don't understand is this. To the end of the Fifth Estate show, it shows that 2 people from the one group emails to the CBC about the targeted harassment. If that just aired last night, ... How did CBC get those emails before the special even aired? I have no idea. Stan says calling out lies and BS on either side should be the objective. I 100% agree. Just for you watching, just to clarify too, Saul Alinsky was not a communist. He wasn't. There's the meme going around where it's like how to bring about a socialist state by Saul Alinsky. That wasn't his thing. So you don't have to send hate my way because I like Rules for Radicals, because that's not what that is. I'm challenging the people that I want to watch my stuff to, let's all like form a little club where we evolve together and we all read and like increase our intellectual understanding of things. So with Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals is a short book. It's not hard to read. It's really short, and it's a lot of interesting stuff in there. So anyone that wants to have an opinion on Saul Alinsky in a conversation, you should read Rules for Radicals, then we can talk about it, because otherwise it's just a waste of everybody's time. Just read the book. Fanny Enzai is in the chat. She was just has her own channel. I'll probably talk to her, it seems like, so check out her channel as well. Fanny, if you're still watching, just put a link to your thing in the feel free to link your channel in the chat. Also, it's not like there's a BIM Jim here saying Antifa or commies. Anybody who doesn't know this will never understand what's going on. I would also recommend, like, people on the right, like, you should clarify your language. Like, Antifa are not literally communists. Like Marxist communists have their own thing going on. It's called communism, and it's like Antifa are basically just a bunch of losers with a loose an ideology, which is a kind of like a bunch of loose concepts kind of mishmashed together, like communism and anarchism, but it's all incoherent. It's not a real thing, and Antifa are not literal communists, So I would just say, just call them Antifa, or like don't go around saying, it's a poor use of language to say like Antifa are communists, because they're not technically, they're not like Che Guevara style or Maoist-style communists. They're just street punks with a bunch of incoherent bullshit. Um, so just be more specific and nuanced with your language and your terminology would be my advice to you. James Cohen says, "Should any speech be censored? If so, what?" That's like that's not something that I can give you a precise sentence answer to. That would be an ongoing dialogue that we have in this channel. But obviously, I don't condone calls for action. And I do believe I believe in free speech as a value, that there has to be a time and a place in an open society for free speech, like in the right atmosphere for it to foster it, like a university setting. I don't believe in calls to action or harassment at a certain level. So, but that we can have a whole other thing about that. I've been running a free speech themed channel up until I'm kind of rebranding now, but for 3 years. So, feel free to look into any of my previous stuff on that. They are not against fascism either, so Antifa doesn't fit. Antifa is just a modern word for that specific manifestation of idiocy, basically. Their overall philosophy is not coherent, so you can't really connect them to anything. Like I said, it's a mishmash of kind of concepts to justify the manifestation of a type of behavior that's coming from people who are low on the social hierarchy that want to lash out. So they use this as a way to justify the behavior, create sort of a mix mash of ideological concepts to rationalize that and then go forward. But it is incoherent if you wanted to really break it down. So you can't call them like just anarchists or just communists. Just call them Antifa. That's the name for that kind of stupid group. You don't need to make it more complicated than that. Jimmy Jihad says, the commies team up with Antifa. Many consider themselves anarchist. Sure, yeah, and they like a lot of left-wing groups work together and stuff, but that doesn't in any way have anything to do with what I just said, which is that you should still use language more clearly and more nuanced. Says they hate the West so much that they are willing to team up with commies. Well, like I just explained to you the psych profile behind the type of people that it would be an Antifa. You have to remember that this is fringe stuff, right? So it's statistical noise as well. It's not mainstream. It's statistical noise of crap that the media can then just kind of use for optics. So that's another thing too about a lot of right-wing issues, like because we're in an environment where optics matter so much that if people who are underqualified to talk or represent a certain issue insist on representing that issue and then they ruin it for everyone else, that really sucks. And so I think that you got to be really careful on who you allow to talk about certain sophisticated issues, because just allowing any idiot to run out there and destroy everything is totally counterproductive. And do I think that most of the when you say they hate the West so much, I think like people that get, I'm talking about sub pockets of the population that get motivated to hate on the West, some of the SJWs and Antifa and stuff. But the ones that are actually motivated by hate are also statistically minorities. Most people are like NPC types. They're just kind of programmable by the social culture around them. So they're not actually motivated by hate so much as conformity. Sorry, Fanny says, have you talked about Trump? In the beginning, I don't really talk. This is a Canadian themed thing, so I don't talk about Trump that much, and I only have time to focus on certain issues in a day around my normal work, so I don't really follow the Trump stuff lately. Earlier on, I talked more about Trump, and I interviewed more Americans. I've interviewed Richard Spencer, an American person, I was like that, but now, these days, I feel I've done my due diligence by interviewing a lot of personalities on the right, so I know who they are, so I don't misrepresent things. But I'm also more interested in just branching beyond just fringe stuff. It's hard. It's just a lot easier because of the nature of free speech and how the climate change. But with free speech, people only use it that need it. So whatever's not mainstream, those people come asking. Like with right-wing people, it's easier to get them to talk to you because left-wing people don't really need it. So getting a communist or a globalist or someone like that to come on and just talk honestly with me, it's harder to do than to get right-wing personalities. But I've done a lot of work already documenting different right-wing stuff in Canada. I could do another. I'm going to wrap this stream up soon too because it'll get forever. But there's a lot to say about culture in general, right? One thing I'd say is that I'm often, even in a conversation, there's a kind of a context, I guess, to which position you'll take. So because there's so much hatred from far left radicals towards the West, that historically and late for the last few years, I've been sort of always in a defensive position where I'm defending the West, and I've learned so much more about the West in the last 3 years, and there's things I just love about it and all that. But I'm always learning. There's history and culture is always a mixed bag. I feel that even in this culture, I never really fit in anywhere. And that's partly why I'm using, like it all. I was just thinking about this the other day. Well, after I went for a long run, and then I came. I was just chilling out. I was meditating. It's like I was always from birth and from a young age like not a materialist, so I never really cared about like careers and the way other people. Everyone. The reason I'm willing to talk with my real name is because I don't have some $60,000 like Joe job that I'm really afraid of losing the way everyone else is. Everyone else, like Western society is consumer culture, and I don't really think that that is like metaphysically like satisfying either. So I could do a whole nother stream and just hate on the not hate on the West, but criticize the West, talk about how it's kind of in this novel environment that we're now become toxic and corrupted because of like large scale consumerism and crony capitalism, all this stuff. But that would be a stream for another day. So everyone and for theme ideas and stuff like that, feel free to. I like getting feedback, right? So please leave comments on what you want to see, what subjects, stuff like that, and I'll take that into account. Other than that, I'm going to wrap this up now, and I'm just saying that this is what we know. Please check out the links in the description. It seems like the ARC guy, the guy running that blog, has been. It seems like he's been identified, so check out why. There's an affidavit of the court case linked in that thing. The Fifth Estate documentary is worth checking out. So in the meantime, I want to appreciate everyone that still watches my streams. Super love for you guys. Love you all. And people who aren't interested in stuff I do anymore, no hate at all for you guys. Yeah, thanks for watching that. Share the stream if you want to share some of this information. And if you want me to do more, I'm going to keep doing a lot. I'm going to start doing non-political streams, like I'd mentioned, but also the occasional political stream. So if there's something you want me to weigh on, just send me comments so I know. Otherwise, thanks a lot, everyone. It was great doing the stream, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Take care.